Batman works best when he has a mystery to solve. That should be a given, really, seeing as how the world's greatest detective originated in the pages of, Detective Comics some 80 years ago, but not every Batman comic has managed to weave a particular mystery. When one does, it becomes a proper event.
The Dark Knight is a superhero first and foremost. Nothing beats a good mystery, especially when he's in the driving seat. Across multiple comics and eras, the Caped Crusader has unmasked more villains than Mystery Inc. and blown the lid on conspiracies aplenty. He's an expert at multiple investigation techniques and never gives up, no matter how insurmountable the odds may seem.
Naturally, that means there have been a plethora of amazing Batman mysteries. So, I'm Ewan.
And I'm Zoe.
And here are 10 insane Batman mysteries that kept fans guessing. Spoilers, obviously. Number 10, who is Holiday, the Long Halloween? Set during the early years of Batman's vigilante career, the Long Halloween is to many the definitive Batman mystery. It revolves around a war between the Falcone and Maroni crime families, the burgeoning days of Batman's rogues gallery, and of course the Holiday Killer. Various figures are murdered on the different holidays of the year. Meanwhile, Batman, Commissioner Gordon, and Harvey Dent forge a formidable partnership in a bid to take down the mob for good. It's legendary stuff, especially seeing how much the comic has to juggle. Still, the mystery surrounding the murderer specifically, known to the general public as Holiday, is fantastic. Even at the end, when everyone believes Alberto Falcone to be the guilty party, Loeb and Sale pull a complete 180 and reveal that Gilda Dent, Harvey's wife, was behind several of the murders. The final panel shows her uttering Harv's trademark slogan, "I believe in Harvey Dent," in a haunting confirmation that Gotham's madness touches everyone.
Number 9, has James Gordon Jr. changed his ways? The Black Mirror. One of the single most engaging parts of the Black Mirror series is the way in which it delves into the murky waters of Gordon's difficult relationship with his son, James Gordon Jr., who he suspects to be a serial killer. The confusion surrounding whether Jr. is actively vicious and evil, or just a little weird, is a running mystery throughout the entire plot. We are shown how the seeds of doubt have been continually sown in Gordon's mind throughout his son's entire life, culminating when Barbara and the senior Gordon discover that Jr. has altered his anti-psychopathy medication to instead encourage psychopathy, and that his seemingly saintly work at a clinic was all a cover-up to be able to pump his monstrous drugs into children. While in the end, Jr. couldn't be more transparently evil if he started wearing a neon Joker mask, the build-up to this reveal does make for a truly engaging mystery.
Number 8, The Black Glove, Batman R.I.P. Grant Morrison had already been seeding his overarching mystery in Batman and Son and the Black Glove, but it was with Tony S. Daniel that the writer truly ratcheted up the mystery altogether, including multiple twists, turns, and brilliant callbacks to the Dark Knight's past. It's kind of the best. The story sees the Black Glove's machinations come full circle as they're able to destabilize the Bat and have free reign over Gotham. The comic reveals that Jezebel Jet was a double agent all along, that Bruce was hiding a failsafe personality within his own mind known as Zur-En-Arrh, and how the Black Glove had been seeding Batman's demise since the very start. The comic also reveals the true identity of Dr. Hurt, who had previously presented himself as Thomas Wayne, while also delivering one of the most triumphant Batman images of all time in its climax: Batman and Robin will never die.
Number 7, is Damian actually Deathstroke's son? Given how much of Damian Wayne's identity is built upon his father being the Dark Knight, it seems exceedingly cruel that a portion of his time saw him go through comics equivalent of Jeremy Kyle, in terms of finding out who his real dad is. After a DNA test appeared to prove that Damian's biological father was Deathstroke, fans immediately began their detective work. Slade's similar demeanor, and previously hinted at encounters with Talia al Ghul, made for a very real possibility that he was Damian's father. However, these concerns were put to rest in Deathstroke 35, wherein we learn Slade can't be Damian's father for a series of reasons, the most important being that he's had a vasectomy, which he tells Batman in perhaps the most awkward moment in the hero's history. While this did solve the mystery, as we later learned it was one of Talia al Ghul's weird schemes, it doesn't change the fact that there was a very real chance that it could have gone either way, which is what made the whole thing so interesting.
Number 6, who outed RENE Montoya, Gotham Central? Some of the most fascinating Batman comics of all time don't even tend to focus on the character, and Gotham Central is no exception. Greg Rucka, Ed Brubaker, and Michael Lark's comic represents a seminal moment in the Dark Knight's history, and Half Alive arguably stands at its peak. Written by Rucka with art from Lark, Half Alive delved deep into complex themes and won multiple awards. Central to this was RENE Montoya, a closeted lesbian cop who was outed in the workplace. RENE suddenly finds herself facing homophobic harassment from everywhere, while her religious family cut her off for good. With her life collapsing around her, RENE resolves to find the truth. She uncovers the name of the PI who had taken photos of her and her girlfriend, but he's found dead shortly thereafter, with Montoya's fingerprints all over the scene of the crime. She's been framed, and she's busted out of her courtroom appearance by none other than Two-Face, the architect of RENE's collapse. Why? Because Harvey's in love with her. He decided to take her entire life apart so that RENE would have no other option but to be with him, despite the fact that, Montoya is gay. The true genius of Half a Life lies in its honest depiction of LGBT themes, but the mystery itself was also fantastic.
Number 5. Who is the Phantasm? Mask of the Phantasm. The unusual thing about the Mask of the Phantasm series is that, in theory, it should have been totally straightforward as to who exactly the Phantasm is, as the mysterious figure shows up just at the same time as we are introduced to Bruce Wayne's ex-fiancée, who just so happens to have returned to Gotham around the exact same time. But this is done in such a measured way that, actually, for a good portion of the plot, you're left not entirely sure if that is in fact the case. There are so many other questionable individuals introduced within literal minutes of one another that it's impossible to tell which of them is the most suspicious. Especially because almost everyone in the story has either made deals with the Mafia or has a kill count higher than your average game of Call of Duty. The Phantasm is, of course, revealed to be none other than said ex-fiancée, Andrea Beaumont, in a move that left audiences not entirely surprised, but absolutely left them satisfied. Number 4. A failed wedding, Batman Rebirth. The wedding between Batman and Catwoman was perhaps one of the most anticipated events of recent Batman history. This anticipation, however, was built by the fact that it seemed unlikely the wedding would actually take place. After Batman 50, this sadly proved to be the case, and the question instead turned to why. In perhaps the most unexpected ending to a comic of all time, we see Holly Robinson back in Arkham, where she tells Bane that she did her job. With said job seemingly being convincing Selina to break off the wedding, the mystery of the failed wedding appears to legitimately have been part of an evil plot led by Bane.
Number 3. How has the Joker returned? Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker. Return of the Joker revolves around the return of the Clown Prince of Crime to Gotham decades after his apparent death. Bruce Wayne's old and no longer Batman. In his place is a teenager called Terry McGinnis, and Terry knows absolutely nothing about the Clown Prince. Bruce had refused to discuss his arch-nemesis, and it means Terry underestimates him completely. Batman Beyond's sole feature-length story peels back its mystery in brief but explosive moments of exposition. The suspects are there, but it's only when Barbara Gordon tells Terry about the Joker's death that viewers begin to paint an accurate picture of what's going on. The eventual revelation that Joker's last act of violence against Batman involved him planting a computerized fail-safe personality on Tim Drake is totally wild, but it also works. It goes to show how his legacy was felt years after his death, and reiterates just how terrifying the Clown Prince can be when handled correctly. Number 2. Did Jason Todd kill a man as Robin? Batman. A mystery that's still without an answer, the death of Felipe Gonzalez continues to captivate Bat fans some 30 years after it originally transpired. Mysteries don't get much more insane than that. Of all the characters to be reinvented after Crisis on Infinite Earths, Jason Todd benefited maybe the most. He went from being Dick Grayson Mark II into something altogether more different. More abrasive, yes, but this Robin had rough edges. He wasn't, and still isn't to a degree, like any of the others. Jason was a street orphan who first encountered Batman by trying to jack the wheels to the Batmobile, a bigger flex you will not find. Bruce took him under his wing, but it became clear that Jason wasn't like Dick. He had an angry streak, and it manifested most prominently when the dynamic duo came up against Felipe Garzonas, a rapist who relied on his, Lethal Weapon fans say it with me, diplomatic immunity to evade justice. Justifiably incensed by how the system was failing Garzonas' victims, Jason went to Felipe's residence to exact justice. Batman chases after, but by the time he does, Garzonas is plummeting to his death. He asks Jason if he had fallen or if he was pushed, to which Todd paused, looked Bruce in the eye, and then replied that he guessed he spooked him, and that Garzonas had slipped. Did Jason kill Felipe? It's never been confirmed one way or the other, but it would certainly seem like he did.
Number 1. Does Batman kill the Joker? The Killing Joke. Of course, no conversation about mysteries in Batman is complete without its prime example, that of the end of The Killing Joke, where we see the Dark Knight grab Joker as the two burst into fits of laughter. This ending has drawn practically endless debate, from comic fans and comic writers alike, as to whether the comic concludes with Batman murdering his arch-nemesis. Indeed, there's plenty to support the idea, as the idea of Batman killing the Joker is raised in the comic as early as its 4th page. That said, having the comic end with the Joker's death would seem to contradict its entire message. With the theme of not letting bad things change you be so prevalent in Jim Gordon's portion of the story, it seems antithetical to have Batman entirely give in, especially since it seems out of character. But then, maybe that's the point. Maybe the Killing Joke's ending isn't as triumphant as we once thought. We'll never know exactly what took place in the closing panels of The Killing Joke, and, in a way, that's the very best thing about it.